Clem Sunter was born in Old England. I live in New England. This is the Old England, Suffolk, England. Educated at Winchester College, Oxford, where he read in politics, philosophy, and economics before joining Charter Consolidated as a management trainee a few years ago. We won't mention the area. In 1971, he moved to Lusaka in Zambia to work for Anglo-American Corporation, Central Africa. From there, he was transferred in 1973 to the head office of Anglo-American Corporation of South Africa in Johannesburg. And he spent most of his subsequent private sector career in the gold and uranium division, serving as its chairman and CEO from 1990 to 1996. At the time, it was the largest gold producer in the world. He was until recently chairman of the Anglo-American Chairman's Fund, which in a recent survey was rated the premier corporate social responsibility fund in South Africa. I just want to give you one example of the impact, the real-world impact of some of your scenario planning, and it relates directly to South Africa. And this was in the early 1980s. He established a scenario planning function in Anglo with teams in London and Johannesburg. Using material from these teams, Mr. Sunter put together a presentation entitled The World in South Africa in the 1990s, which became very popular in South Africa in the mid-1980s. In it, two scenarios were offered for South Africa: the high road of negotiation leading to a political settlement, and the low road of confrontation leading to a civil war and a wasteland. Fortunately, for all of us, South Africa took the high road. Since 1987, Clem has authored 14 books, some of which have been bestsellers. His other main interest is seeking to mobilize the private sector in the war against HIV/AIDS. He was recently awarded an honorary doctorate at the University of Cape Town for his work in the field of scenario planning. He was also voted by leading South African CEOs as the speaker who has made the most significant contribution to and impact on best practice and business in South Africa. In 2006, he was invited to give a scenario presentation at the Central Party School in Beijing. This is a rare privilege for a foreigner. He has also facilitated sessions on global warming in New Delhi and London. One of the things you did not put in your CV, I have to say, he's also been guest faculty on scenario planning at that school at Harvard across the river from the Kennedy School of Government. We call it the Harvard Business School. You left that out. He also didn't tell you that he's an avid golfer and a great fan of all sorts of music. So, little personal touch there. Anyways, welcome to Tax Indaba 2014 to speak about the world in South Africa beyond 2014, the latest scenarios, flags, and probabilities. Mr. Clem Sunter.
Thank you very much, Jay. And one of the last things Michael said in his talk is to consider risk management as part of any portfolio regarding future tax policies. And essentially, scenario planning is one of the tools you use in risk management. My story goes back to 2000. I was sent a thesis by a young woman who was a student at the University of Cape Town. Her name is Chantal Ilbury, and her thesis was on scenario planning. And she made one devastating comment on scenario planning, which, because of my experience in Anglo during the 80s and 90s, really caught my eye. She said it was far too abstract and intellectual to appeal to ordinary people. I used to go to London to compare the Anglo with the Shell, Royal Dutch Shell scenarios, because they were considered the holy grail of scenario planning in the 1980s. And I always remember the concierge on the ground floor